Picture a child sitting at the dinner table while everyone around them talks and laughs. They try to speak, but their voice gets swallowed by the noise. They raise their hand with something important to say, but no one turns their head. They walk into the room, and it's as if the air didn't even move. Not because they're shy or quiet, but because somehow, in ways they can't quite name, they've learned that their presence doesn't matter. They are there, physically occupying space, but emotionally, socially, psychologically, they might as well be invisible. And the worst part? No one seems to notice. Not even the people who are supposed to love them most. This is the psychology of the invisible child. And if you were this child, you probably didn't realize how abnormal it was. Because when you're living it, when being overlooked is your daily reality, you don't have anything to compare it to. You just assume that's how it is, that some people matter and others are background noise. And somehow you ended up being the noise. Not loud enough to bother anyone, not quiet enough to concern anyone, just there. Existing in the margins of everyone else's story. Let's start with how a child becomes invisible. It's rarely one dramatic event. It's usually 1,000 small moments of being unseen. You're at the dinner table and everyone's talking over you. You bring home a good grade and no one asks about it. You're upset and no one notices. You have a birthday and it's forgotten or treated like an afterthought. You express a need and it gets dismissed or delayed until you stop asking. And slowly, so slowly, you don't even realize it's happening. You learn that your presence doesn't matter. That you are not significant enough to occupy space in other people's awareness. But here's what makes this so damaging. Children need to be seen to develop a sense of self. They need someone to mirror back to them that they exist, that they matter, that their feelings are real and valid. When a child is consistently invisible, they don't just feel ignored. They start to question whether they're real at all. Because if no one sees you, if no one responds to you, if your existence doesn't change anything about the world around you, then what proof do you have that you matter? This is emotional neglect. And it's particularly insidious because there's nothing to point to. No bruises, no yelling, no obvious abuse. Just absence. Just a child floating through a family or a classroom or a social group completely unnoticed. And that absence leaves a mark deeper than most people understand. Because you can't grieve what you never had. You can't name the wound when the wound is that you were never acknowledged in the first place. Children who grow up invisible develop very specific survival strategies. The first is becoming hyper-aware of everyone else. They learn to read the room, to understand what everyone else needs, to anticipate problems before they happen. Because if you can't get attention by existing, maybe you can get it by being useful, by being helpful, by making yourself indispensable in ways that don't require anyone to actually see you. You become the child who cleans without being asked, who mediates arguments, who takes care of younger siblings, who never causes problems. Because problems require attention, and you've learned that attention isn't for you. The second strategy is disappearing even further. If being invisible is painful, then maybe you can make it intentional. Maybe you can convince yourself you chose it. So you become quiet. You stop raising your hand in class. You stop trying to join conversations. You eat lunch alone and tell yourself you prefer it that way. You spend hours in your room and call it independence. And to everyone else, you look fine. Self-sufficient, no trouble at all. But inside, you're screaming. You're hoping someone will notice that your silence isn't peace, it's resignation. The third strategy is overachieving. If you can't be seen for who you are, maybe you can be seen for what you do. So you excel. You get perfect grades, you win awards. You become the best at something, anything, because achievement is visible in a way that your personhood isn't. But here's the tragedy. Even when you succeed, even when you're objectively exceptional, it still doesn't feel like they see you. They see your accomplishments. They see your usefulness. But they don't see the child underneath who just wanted to be loved without having to earn it.
Let's talk about what this does to your sense of who you are.
Between the ages of roughly 6 and 12, children are supposed to be developing an understanding of themselves. They're supposed to be exploring interests, forming opinions, testing boundaries, and having adults guide them through that process. But when you're invisible, no one guides you. No one asks what you're interested in. No one cares about your opinions. No one validates your feelings. So you grow up without a clear sense of self. Because your self was never reflected back to you, you don't know who you are because no one ever treated you like a person worth knowing. This creates a fragmented sense of identity. You become whoever you think people need you to be in any given moment. You're a chameleon, adapting, shifting, performing versions of yourself that might finally get noticed. But none of those versions feel real, because they're not. They're just costumes you wear hoping someone will finally see you. And when they don't, when you're still invisible even after all that effort, you stop knowing which version is actually you. Maybe none of them are. Maybe you've been performing for so long that there's nothing underneath. Children who grow up invisible also develop a core belief that will haunt them for decades. I am not important. This belief becomes the lens through which they interpret everything. When someone cancels plans, it confirms it. When someone forgets their birthday, it confirms it. When someone talks over them, it confirms it. Every small slight becomes evidence of a truth they've always known, that they don't matter, that their presence is optional, that the world would continue exactly the same whether they were in it or not. And here's where it gets even more painful. Invisible children often grow up to seek out relationships where they remain invisible. Not because they want to, but because it's familiar. They're drawn to people who don't see them, who take them for granted, who treat them as an afterthought. Because being ignored feels like home. Being overlooked feels normal. And the few times someone does see them, truly see them, it feels so foreign, so uncomfortable, so undeserved that they sabotage it. They push that person away. They convince themselves it's not real. Because deep down, they still believe they're not worth seeing. Let's talk about what this looks like in adulthood. If you were the invisible child, you probably struggle with asserting yourself. You apologize constantly. You downplay your achievements. You make yourself small in every space you enter, because you've learned that taking up space is dangerous, that being noticed is not safe. So you shrink. You whisper. You stand at the edges of rooms hoping no one calls on you, but also desperately hoping someone does. You also probably struggle with believing that people actually like you. Even when someone explicitly says they care about you, part of you is waiting for them to realize they were wrong, to see that you're not actually interesting or valuable or worth their time. Because if your own family didn't see you, if the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally couldn't be bothered to notice you, then how could anyone else? You become convinced that anyone who claims to see you must be mistaken, that they're seeing a version of you that doesn't exist, and eventually they'll realize it and leave. There's also a deep, aching loneliness that comes with being the invisible child, because you can be in a room full of people and still feel completely alone. You can be in a relationship and still feel unseen. You can achieve success and still feel like none of it matters because no one's truly celebrating you. They're celebrating what you did for them. And that loneliness isn't just about being alone. It's about never feeling truly known. Never feeling like anyone has actually bothered to understand who you are beneath the surface. Because to be understood, you first have to be seen, and you never were. But here's what's crucial to understand. Being invisible as a child wasn't your fault. You didn't do anything to deserve it. You weren't too much or too little or too anything. The people who should have seen you were too distracted, too overwhelmed, too emotionally unavailable, or too self-absorbed to do their job. And their failure became your wound. But it was never a reflection of your worth. It was a reflection of their limitations. So how do you heal from being the invisible child? The first step is the hardest one, believing that you are actually invisible. Because invisible children often tell themselves it wasn't that bad, that other people had it worse, that they're being dramatic. But you're not. If you felt unseen, you were unseen. And that deserves to be acknowledged, not minimized, not compared, not dismissed. Your pain is real, your experience matters, and it's okay to grieve the childhood you should have had. The second step is learning to see yourself, because if no one else did it, you have to. You have to become the witness your child self never had. You have to start paying attention to your own feelings, your own needs, your own thoughts. You have to ask yourself the questions no one asked you. What do I actually want? What do I actually feel? What do I actually need? And you have to take those answers seriously. Because for the first time in your life, someone is listening, and that someone is you. The third step is practicing visibility. And this is terrifying, because you've spent your entire life trying not to be seen. But you have to start taking small risks. Speaking up in meetings, sharing your opinion, taking up space, saying no, asking for what you need. And yes, your nervous system will scream at you that this is dangerous, that you're going to be rejected or dismissed or humiliated. But you have to do it anyway, because the only way to change the belief that you're invisible is to prove to yourself that you're not. That when you show up, people notice. That when you speak, people listen. That your presence does matter. The fourth step is choosing people who see you, because you can't heal in relationships where you're still invisible. You need friends who ask about your day and actually listen to the answer. You need partners who notice when something's wrong. You need people who remember the details of your life, who check in on you without being prompted, who make you feel like your existence adds something valuable to their world. And if the people in your life can't do that, you need new people. Because you've been invisible long enough. You deserve to be seen. Here's what you need to know if you were the invisible child. You are not a ghost. You are not background noise. You are not someone people can just overlook. You are a person. A full, complex, worthy person who deserved to be seen from the very beginning. And the fact that you weren't, the fact that you had to grow up feeling like you didn't matter, that's a tragedy. But it doesn't have to be your story forever. Because you can learn to see yourself. You can learn to take up space. You can learn that being visible is not dangerous, it's liberating. You can learn that your voice matters, your feelings matter, your needs matter. And slowly, very slowly, you can step out of the shadows you've been hiding in. Not because you're ready, not because it's comfortable, but because you've been invisible long enough. And the world needs to see you. Not the version of you that's useful or convenient or easy, but the real you. The one who's been waiting all this time to finally be noticed. You're here. You always were. And you matter. You always did.